Hey guys, this is JSer. How's everything going? In this video, let's take a look at some JavaScript quizzes. This one is about async function utils. It's similar to promise, but it is not. So let's take a look at what it is. We are required to implement 3 async util functions. One is sequence, another one is parallel, and the last one is arrays. So suppose we have these kind of function, which will return another closure function, within a closure, and these function accept a callback. And this callback will trigger with error and data. This one is also accept a callback and with the extra data. And the callback will be triggered with error and data. So async sequence will chain this function into one, and the data from one function will be passed on to the second one, and so on to the last. And finally, the function returned by a sequence will accept a callback, and this callback again will receive the error data. And suppose for this case user func and uppercase name, the first get user will actually return a user with this ID 22 with name Joe, and so this data will be passed on to the second one, uppercase name. And in this function, the callback will trigger with the name transformed to uppercase. So here we got a capitalized Joe, but at last we got data as all uppercase Joe, right? Here only the first letter capitalized. Well, let's just start writing the first one, async. Let's comment out the rest. Of course, accepts a bunch of functions, and it will return another function which accepts a callback, right? Yeah. Now, what should we do? Well, for the first function, we need to trigger it, and then trigger it with a callback. The callback will accept the error and data, and when this callback is called, actually the triggering of the first function, the logic, will be triggered again for the second one, right? So obviously it's something like a recursion. We need to extract the trigger, the logic of triggering. Let's create a function called callNext. When we call next, it means we will pick the next function from callback, the functions list, and trigger it with a callback, right? So we get the function, but we need to keep track of where we are. Like we get first, and then we get the next one, right? So for this call next, it doesn't know what function is. We need to keep track of current function, which say next function index set to 0 as the initial value. And so we can get the next function, which is func next func index. When it is called, we increment the index to prepare for the next call, and then we will call the next function with a callback. The callback will accept error and data, so it's a function, and the data, right? Yeah. Let's first get the no, wait a minute. We'll trigger the next one. Actually, we could just pass in the error and data. So the callback actually will we can add the 2 parameters. One is error and data. Right? When we are triggering the function, like the first one get this one, we just passed on the data, right? Cool. So for the callback here, we'll just the error data, we should just call it next, right? This is it. And call next with the first one, which is it's undefined. So yeah, that's it. And we need to handle the last one, right? So this actually will be overflow for the last one. We need to add an if clause, say if there is still function in the list, which are not we haven't triggered yet, something like this. If not, then it means all the functions are triggered. So we could just call the callback, right? Callback will be error and data. One thing is that when error, the first error, we will just go to the last callback immediately. So we need to add an extra if clause here. If error, else. If error, we just call back error and move. Well, it depends on what we should get for data. We maybe just use undefined is also good. Let's log the error and data. Cool, it's null and Joe. Yeah, that's it. You see, this is what we got. What we get. And let's try if what if we trigger an error here, like error 1. Yeah, we got error 1 and undefined, and call uppercase. It's not called, because if it's called, the error should be null here, right? Okay. Oh, because we already used null, let's just use null here. Yeah, that's it. This is the first one, sequence. As we did, we extract the common logic of trigger next, and make it a function, and call the next with itself. So this generates a recursion, and all the functions in this will be triggered one by one with the data in the previous one passed in, and the last data passed to the callback. That's it. This is for sequence. And for the chain of functions, promise will be a good way to do it. Let's try to see how we rewrite it in a promise fashion. The previous function, the error and data, should be passed on to the next function through a promise. So when the promise resolved, which will get the data, which is rejected, it will get the error. So the whole will be a chained promises, right? So for the sequence functions, it will create a chain of promises, and for each function, we will the initial promise will be a result value. And then each function will be chained to the original promised resolved promise. So we should we should loop through the functions and chain them one by one. We could use reduce, like chainable. Here is the function. The initial one, it should be a resolved. It should be no error. So no error, it is resolved value, but it's resolved to null. This data is null. So, and for the reduce, we need to return the previous promise, right? So we return chainable then, and here it should be the first one should be the resolved, right? So we get data from it. Now we are getting data from previous function. So now we need to return a new promise. In this promise, the function, the current function will be called. So it should be a function call with a callback. Callback will trigger will have the error and data. And then this is the data. So if error, we just reject it. If not, we resolve with the data. Yeah, this is it, the chain. And the promise will then handle the last, the callback, right? So it should be error, no, data, callback, more data, and then catch, error, callback, error, move. Promise solve. Oh, okay. I think. I'm sorry. I forgot to return a function. Return the callback. Cool. So this is our promise version. Comparing it to the previous one with recursion, this one is actually more easy to understand, right? So for each call of the function, we're returning a promise, and this promise will be changed to the previous one. And the successful callback will pass on the data. The rejection will pass on the error. So it's pretty straightforward. If there's no error here, you should get the big Joe as always. If there's error 1 here, we get error 1. Cool. So this is the solution for the sequence. Now, let's implement the next one, which is the parallel. Parallel accepts the same parameter, which is a bunch of functions, but rather than chain them up, we just call them one by one, right? The data of the first function will not be passed on to the next one. We're connecting all the data as array, and once an error is found, the callback will be triggered immediately. So this error actually will be the first error that we meet. Yeah, and if the error is found, the data should be null, and yeah. So when all the functions is triggered and all the callback is called with the proper data, and the this of the data will be passed on to the last callback. So let's write the data, write the function. This parallel method, it just accepts a function list as a parameter. Well, we just call all the functions at once, right? Once error is found, then we trigger the callback. But there might be another error we should ignore. So we need to keep a flag whether an error is found or not. And when the function is called without error, we need to update the data in the result array. But we don't know when the error, but we don't know the timing where all the function has run. So we need to keep track of another flag. Just by counting, we count the successful run function and compare it to the function list account. If it matches, then it means all the function has resolved. So we will trigger the callback with the data we want, right? Okay, so as we analyst, we say fulfill user array to keep track of data, and the let is all fulfilled false. Let is error false, right? Cool. Now let's just trigger all of them. We use a for each, funcs for each, and this is func, this is index. Cool. Now we trigger it. So func, the callback with error and data. If error is found, then if it is the first error, we trigger the callback, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Return the function. Yeah, so callback with this error and null. If it is not errored, we update the data to the result array, which is data. But as we said, we need to keep track of the fulfilled count. 0. We update it, increment it by 1. And then check if all the functions are resolved. Equals to func.net. Then it means, okay, we're good to go. So call back null, and it should be the fulfilled. Call back null fulfilled. Is all fulfilled? Sorry, this is not needed. Cool. So actually, I think we're done. Let's try to see the example here. We got get user 1, get user 2. We should get the user list, but we get null, which is not good. Fulfilled index equals data. The callback. Yeah, this is the callback. Error, if error, no, so we update it. Field count plus 1, if equals to the length, we call back null fulfill. There is something wrong. Func switch. Fulfilled index data fulfilled plus 1 equals to, and then we trigger the right. I'm sorry. We need to log the error here, and actually we use error 1 here, so it's not okay. We get null. Now you see we successfully get the user 1 and user 2, right? Cool. If the error happens, like let's say because this is a set timeout, it's a sync. If here get error 1 to error, not here. It's the same. So if we get error 1, so we should return the error 1, right? 2, error 2. Cool. So that's it. That's the implementation for parallel. Last one, raise. It's like promise raise. As always, we should return a function with a callback. Well, for raise, it means the first function which resolves your value will be used. Will be used to call the callback, to trigger the callback. If one of the errors happen, then the first error will be used, right? The first error and the first data. So we need to trick, but because we only use the first data, after that there might be errors or new data. We should ignore them, right? So we should need to keep track of two flags, which is errored, false, and is let's just use the promise fashion. It said is rejected, is fulfilled, false. And again, for each function, we will trigger it with a callback. If we found an error, no. We should need to ignore it if it is errored or it is rejected or is fulfilled, right? So if it's rejected or is fulfilled, return. We do nothing. So we only continue if it is no error and there's no data. So now if it is error, we just call back the error, right? And the other case, we have data, so we call back null and data. But we need to update the flag. It's equal to true. This fulfilled set to true. And that's it. Okay, that's it. We are running with this example. We got not winner. Where is winner? Winner's data. Use thunk1. The user will be a timeout with this time. And faster it is only 10 milliseconds. So yeah, of course it's faster. Well, if it's faster, but you get an error, I say it should return a fast error, and we log the error. Yeah, fast error, undefined. Cool. So that's all for these 3 problems. I think it's very interesting JavaScript problems. We need a good understanding about the closure. There's no closure here actually. A lot about callback, about how we can chain a function calls with recursion or with promise. Yeah, this promise looks interesting. Yeah, that's it. Hope it helps. Let's practice more. See you next time. Bye-bye.